It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Breaking news in the NFL. A mega deal for all-pro defensive tackle Quinnen Williams of the New York Jets, agreeing to terms on a 4-year, $96 million extension, the second largest contract ever for a defensive tackle, reported by Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. Williams gets $66 million in guarantees. The total money, just $2 million more than Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, who got his extension earlier in the offseason. Another extension announced today from the Southeastern Conference with Commissioner Greg Sankey. The deal will run through 2028. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Welcome in, Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone with you until 3 o'clock, as we are each and every day, but it's a different spin on it on this Thursday afternoon, as neither Blaine nor Mickey are here. Lucas Panzica with you. I've been sitting in Mickey Ryan's chair since Monday. Blaine Bishop now off on a well-deserved vacation. And across from me today, Joseph Hunkapiller. You know him as Joe Hunk, producer of 3HL. So let's put a different spin on this thing, Joe Hunk. This is the first time we've ever gotten to do this, you and I.
2.5 years that I've been here, and this is the first time you and I have sat across from each other on anything. We've done high school football with you being at the stadium while I was doing the post-game show. We have done various forms of me running the board for you while you were doing high school show as well. This is the first time, and you know how excited I was. You could tell because I thought the show started at noon. Been here for 2.5 years. For some reason, I was, no lie, Zeph is in the other room right there. I was prepared for the show to start at noon. I was about to walk in here at 11:55, and I was about to kick Buck out.
I wish you had.
I had, and for some reason, my mind said 12 o'clock the entire time, even though I've been here and the entire time I've been on 104.5, it's been 1 o'clock.
Well, this is that time of year, obviously, where all these moving parts and pieces are happening. A lot of people on vacation, in and out. And we were talking about it yesterday, Blaine and I, and I've heard this conversation happen a lot this time of year, every year. Is July the worst sports month? And we have that discussion because obviously nothing's really going on as far as what's happening here, college football, the NFL. We're talking about it. We're waiting with bated breath to see what DeAndre Hopkins does, counting down the days to training camp. But for you, Joe Hunk, surely July is a pretty solid sports month, right? As a baseball aficionado.
Now, the month itself, yeah, it's a little slow. You have the NBA is done, NHL hockey is done. It's kind of the one month where you have in the very beginning, you have the OTAs or the mandatory camp, so you get a little bit of football. But as far as on the field, baseball is it, and really, the home run derby is awesome because of the new format that is gone. The All-Star game itself, that has lost a lot of luster. And I hate it.
Or in general?
I think in general. I mean, the ratings for it came out yesterday, and the ratings were horrible for it. I mean, it's still the best of the All-Star games, but as far as in general what it used to be 4 and 5 and 6 years ago, or even 10 and 15 years ago, yeah, it's kind of lost a lot of its flavor because Major League Baseball, outside of the NFL, where really you don't want to play in it, a lot of people do want to play in the Major League Baseball All-Star game. The Pro Bowl is just a horrible because they've gotten rid of the whole thing altogether. The NBA, they are lackey and they don't really do the calls the way that you normally would see them. You start getting 170 to 180. Yeah. Like those are the scores. To me, the best All-Star game is the NHL All-Star game. That is the best one. You have 3 miniature hockey games against each other. There's a champion at the end. There's a prize of, I believe, $1 million for each player. That, to me, is the most entertaining NHL hockey, or the hockey format is the best one for the All-Star games. I think the part of the Major League Baseball one is, is it that much to say that it is because of the uniforms? Like, the uniform part of this has totally taken over the All-Star game because you have went to the generic uniform so that you could sell marketing and do merchandise sales, but at the same time, you've also taken away the personality of the event.
Yeah.
Like, you've taken away what made it special because, I know that you are younger than I am, but there was a period of time, even when I was beginning to get into sports in the early 90s, those uniforms, the only time that we saw any of the American League ones was during the All-Star game because you were either watching WGN and watching the Cubs or watching the Braves on TBS. And only time you ever got those uniforms were during the All-Star game or maybe the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball game. So it was cool to see them. I guess now that's not as big of a deal in 2023 because I can go in and log in on my MLB.TV, and not only can we watch Major League Baseball on this TV, but I can also put the sounds on this TV, so we can watch that here. It may be different, but there needs to be a change in the All-Star format. The Home Run Derby, on the other hand, that thing is fire. That's awesome. I love watching that. So from that standpoint, yes, there's way more stuff to do off the field, though. SEC Media Days, Big 12 Media Days has already taken place. We talked about OTAs and mandatory minicamp at the beginning. Those things kind of get you through the month, and then people forget. And look, I mean, it's July 13th, bro. Like 12 days, rookies are reporting to Ascension St. Thomas. Like we're almost here. So it's kind of cool, but yeah, baseball is the only thing you got going on. It's the only game in town.
Happens fast. Now, Major League Soccer going on in Nashville, that is about to head into a break for Leagues Cup, so it really does get bare until training camp picks up. You sent me this yesterday, the MLB All-Star Game, the lowest rated and least watched ever, but still ranks as the most watched All-Star event in sports. Despite a larger overall audience, the MLB All-Star Game trails the Home Run Derby and the NBA All-Star Game. So people are watching it, like non-baseball people are watching it, but less baseball people are watching it. Is that how I am to take this?
Kind of, because
but like I watched it, and you know me, I'm not a baseball aficionado. No. It's just that one sport that I think what I am with baseball is how you are with soccer, right? Yeah. It's just that one sport that we didn't grow up with and we never just got attached to or drawn to. But, man, I enjoyed the hell out of watching the MLB All-Star Game the other day.
Well, first, it was a great game.
I
think it was a really good game.
Great environment. It has this sort of, and I agree with you that the NHL does a really nice job of sort of modulating the format instead of just playing a regular hockey game. But I think baseball is the sport where, and soccer does a good job of this too, the MLS All-Stars will play Arsenal, right? They'll grab a team from Europe to come over, and so fans can come watch players that they watch in Europe, etc. But I think baseball is the sport that is best set up for an all-star game where you can actually just play a regular game.
Yes.
Right? That doesn't have to be as much of that chemistry with those guys, that you're still pitching and hitting and the fans are having a great time and you're seeing all these marquee players. And it was a packed house at T-Mobile Park. But for me, it's the balance of levity and intensity at the all-star game. That it's the All-Star Game. The stakes aren't very high, and players are chopping it up with one another. First baseman's chatting with the guy who just walked to first.
I think the winning team gets $20,000.
Okay, there you go.
I mean,
there's a little something there. Like there's a carrot.
Yeah, there's a little bitty tiny carrot. I mean,
it's not defining any careers or anything like that. But at the same time, there's also a balance of intensity to it, where players want to win. And the NL beats the AL for the first time in over a decade. The other day, Craig Kimbrell comes in and gets the save, and you almost had the storybook finish with Julio Rodriguez at the plate in Seattle. I had a really good time. It was an electric environment, and I noticed while watching the MLB All-Star Game that I've had more fun watching baseball this year than I feel like I ever have, except everything that sticks out in my mind. I had a ton of fun watching the MLB All-Star Game. I loved the World Baseball Classic, the final between USA and Japan, the intensity of it, the celebration with Shohei Ohtani, and in college baseball. But none of my baseball watching experiences that I really enjoyed this year involved the MLB regular season. I felt like all of those other things I've mentioned had way more intensity, way more fireworks to me than any MLB regular season game that you can watch.
Well, I think that the All-Star Game as a whole is kind of like a big season all in itself of the way that fans feel, because you get excited for the very beginning. You know, Ronald Acuna Jr. starting the game off against Garrett Cole, Braves versus Yankees. You have this whole matchup in the beginning. Acuna almost goes deep. For Braves fans, then right after him, Freddie Freeman came up to bat. So you have this excitement in the beginning. It's like the first month or two of the regular season. Baseball is back. Spring is here. Let's go see a game. I can't wait to see these guys in new uniforms. Then you get to those middle innings, and that's kind of how a baseball game is broken up. 1 through 3 is kind of exciting. Then you kind of settle in for 4 through 7. And then 8 and 9 is intense. And that's what it was for the All-Star Game, because you mentioned Julio Rodriguez. Look, there were so many times in that at bat, that man could have swung at something dumb because he's in Seattle. He's the hometown kid. He's the rookie of the year. He's all of these things that are setting up for him to want to take one deep and the whole city go crazy and
walk
celebrate
it off,
him. And instead, he ran the count full and he did the smart thing. He took an outside slider and boom, he goes to first base. And you're going, you know what? He got on base. He moved it up. You keep it going.
Yeah, you're just trying to win the game.
Just keep it going because all you needed was Jose Ramirez to get a base hit and the game is tied. And then you go to the home run derby that people forget about. So you go into this whole thing with him. There were so many instances. Kimbrel couldn't throw a good strike. He was nipping. He was going through all the corners. This is what was so exciting about baseball. You had both dugouts, players on the edge, excited, taunting each other, having fun. That's the excitement of what it could be. And this is where this game can be extremely fun when you get to the important parts. And you said, WBC, the best thing that's happened for baseball in the last 20 years. Because outside of the DH being added, that has brought more attention to baseball in so many good ways because it's country versus country. It's the Olympics. It's the World Cup. It's all this other stuff. It was Shohei versus Mike Trout at the end of this thing to go into it. You had this American pride versus Japan. Like, it was awesome to see. And that the season is long. It will. That intensity, hopefully, that you had, again, as a baseball fan, I hope you have it in August and September as we start to go through. But it's kind of like what you said with me in soccer. I know the moment that I walk into Geodis, I would fall in love. I know I would. Because being in the stadium is like being in the arena at Bridgestone for a Preds game. So much better in person. So much more fun. So much more exciting. You just have to commit to watching it.
There was big news in the National Football League today that we should get to, as Quinnen Williams has agreed to terms on a 4-year contract extension with the New York Jets, the all-pro defensive tackle on a $96 million mega deal. NFL Network with the report. Largest second contract ever, for a defensive tackle, sources tell Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport, $66 million in guarantees, so $2 million more than Jeffrey Simmons gets as far as total money is concerned. Did that number, anything about that surprise you? We were waiting for Quinnen Williams to get his deal. He did the thing where he scrubbed some Jet stuff off social media. Didn't know if it was going to happen before Jeff. I think, a Titans fan, the Titans were good to get Jeff's deal done before Williams. But I don't know why I thought this number might be a bit higher for Quinnen Williams, who was insanely productive last season.
Well, he had 12 sacks at the end of the season, but he's not Nick Bosa. He's not a Myles Garrett. Both of those guys had like 18 and a half and 16 sacks. He's not one of those. Chris Jones, perfect example for the Chiefs. He should be getting that sort of money. As far as Quinnen Williams is concerned, he is their version of Big Jeff. He's going to be that part, especially in front of this defense, at the very front of it with the defensive line. He's going to be the one that's going to get double teamed. He's going to one that's going to try to open up the holes for their linebackers so their linebackers can get in and get sacks or get pressures or rush a pass. That's the important things he does. The money itself just shows how important that a defensive lineman can be. And in a situation like the Jets, this again goes back to what the Jets could be doing financially, because they still have room that they could add some talent if they were wanting to help Aaron Rodgers. And instead, they invested on the defensive line because they understand that it doesn't matter if we throw up 45 points if we're giving up 46 on defense.
Let's go to the phone, 615-737-1045 for you to chime in. We do have a conversation today around Tennessee football. Are the Vols poised for maybe a come back down to earth type of season in 2023? There's one big college football analyst that seems to think so. But first, we'll take Philly Mike in Franklin here on Blaine and Mickey. What's up, Mike?
All right, guys. What's going on, man? Good to hear you guys today.
You too, man.
Just a couple quick. All right, pretty good, man. A couple quick things on the month of July, which is a boring month at times, but there's a couple events for tennis lovers. You got Wimbledon that's going on. Then you have the Open over in Europe. So those are two big marquee events. But don't forget the Olympics every 4 years. That helps all of us get through the month of July until football starts. So this time next year over in Paris, you'll have the Summer Olympics going on, but that's a huge event for the month of July every 4 years. And I think that helps all of us get through the summertime as we head toward football. So that's all I got, man. Continue Success on the show, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the call.
No, and the Olympics, I think we don't put that into the conversation just because it does happen every 4 years. And I think, honestly, and I don't know about you, it's kind of like what you were talking about a little while ago with the excitement of the WBC, the All-Star Game, everything, the College World Series and college baseball. It's not about the regular season. I think with the Olympics, I get more excited to actually watch the events that are live than the pre-recorded stuff that they want us to watch. Like NBC's like, oh, this aired this morning at 8 o'clock, but if you missed it, here is what the U.S. team did in the 4x4 100 or whatever. And I'm going, no, I want to watch it live, man. I want to watch it live.
Will Tennessee come back down to earth a little bit in 2023? Will the Vols be able to sustain what they did in 22 under Josh Heupel with Hendon Hooker, all the turnover happening with the personnel? We'll hear from one college football analyst that seems to think so. We want to take your thoughts. 615-737-1045. Lucas Panzica, Joe Hunk hanging out with you until 3 o'clock on 1045 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. And we've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn in his backyard with a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX. Or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always tell them Blaine said you.
Tennessee was flying like an eagle in 2022. There's no doubt about that. I love this song, and I respect the Seal bumper music, Jackson.
The Seal.
Jackson Williams, our producer. Lucas Panzica, Joe Hunk with you until 3 o'clock in for Blaine and Mickey today. I personally prefer the Steve Miller Band version, but it's hard to deny the vibe that is being established right now by Seal.
Over the course of the last week, we all know that I can't make any comments on the way the music is played, apparently.
Oh, yes. There have been criticisms for your music selection.
This is your chance to defend yourself.
It's true.
Look, guys.
This one's a banger. I got it. Did you put this one in?
No, I did put it in, but see, here's where the music part comes into this, and this is Jackson. I'm going to share your secret here, because Jackson has this little thing. You know, in every single Quentin Tarantino movie, there's always the shot from the trunk looking up to the people, like they open up the trunk.
Yep.
There's always that one shot.
Yep.
If Jackson is running a board, Seal will be played at some point in time during the time that he is on the board. This is a Jackson staple. Okay?
I have strayed away recently.
Yes, but
when I first started, yes, Seal was a staple of all of them.
Every single time.
Another Tarantino staple. Do you know where Quentin Tarantino was born?
I have zero ideas.
He was born in Knoxville, Tennessee.
That I should know.
And every Quentin Tarantino movie he has ever made has at least one reference to either Knoxville or just East Tennessee in general. For example, Brad Pitt in the movie Inglourious Basterds. You've seen the movie?
Love that movie.
And his character, when being interrogated by, am I blanking on the incredible actor who plays the Nazi, the German actor that Christoph Waltz.
Yes, the guy that's drinking the milk at the very beginning of the show.
Christoph Waltz's character interrogating Brad Willis's character, something about where he's from, and Brad Willis says, he's from the Smoky Mountains of Maryville, Tennessee. Like, that's just one example.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt. What'd I say? Brad Willis. I do that all the time. So Brad Willis of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, formerly our boss here at 104.5 The Zone, still does great work producing Titans Radio. I did that once on Blaine and Mickey we were talking about the movie Moneyball, and I referenced, when trying to say Brad Pitt, I said Brad Willis, and I texted Brad, I'm trying to make you a Hollywood A-lister on our airwaves. I hope you're listening.
And the thing is, for a second, I thought that you were trying to combine Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis, and because of Pulp Fiction. I was like, oh, he's talking about Tarantino movies. Brad Pitt, Bruce Willis.
And in Pulp Fiction, in the phone booth scene where Bruce Willis, not Brad Willis, is on the phone in the phone booth, he mentions something about passing through Knoxville. So every Tarantino movie has a reference to Knoxville or just the East Tennessee area in general. So Knoxville obviously was buzzing throughout the course of last football season. I don't know if you were watching last night. They had the Tennessee-Bama game on SEC Network. I was not. I was at Geodis Park calling Nashville Soccer Club's loss to Philadelphia Union, but I saw a lot of people that were watching it last night. They put it right there in the prime time slot. The 51-40, I can't get that score wrong. 52
49.
Thank you, Jackson. You were there. 52. No, were you there?
I was not. Sadly.
Okay.
No,
I'm
the
sorry.
knuckler.
52-49 win over Alabama. So Knoxville was flying like an eagle, without a doubt, throughout the course of the 2022 season. The expectation for Tennessee football in 2023 is really a fascinating conversation, because going into last season, anybody would have pointed and laughed in your face if you said, hey, 11 wins this year. Book it. Although I will say Blaine Bishop was in this chair, not this chair specifically because we were in the old studio, but Blaine Bishop was banging the table saying Tennessee's going 10-2 this year. And he was right. Tennessee went 10-2, 11-2 with the Orange Bowl win. But naturally you expect a regression in 2023. Just how much of a regression, I don't know, but I think that is the blanket expectation, right, Joe, that Tennessee is not the college football playoff contender that it was in 2022, and that there will be a little bit of a step back. But I still think it's a big question mark right now because of the unknowns and the turnover and the excitement with what's coming back, but still a question mark.
Well, I think that it all comes down a lot of times to the play of the quarterback, because a lot of teams will become great, lose the quarterback, lose that talent, and they're going to step back the very next season. You can look across college football, and every time a quarterback leaves, you believe there's going to be a drop-off, unless you're talking about an Alabama, an Ohio State. And I actually could just say Ohio State in this, because even at times with Alabama, they've thought going through this dynasty, there was going to be a drop-off. Would there be a drop-off between Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron? Would there be a drop-off between A.J. McCarron and the next quarterback? And then, then you had Coker, and then you had Sims, and you have all these, and hey, when's the drop-off going to happen?
Yeah.
There's always that question because that is the most important position on the football field. I think that's the same way with Tennessee, where the question in every bit of their success goes with Joe Milton. That's the reason why I believe that a lot of people will be questioning this, because unlike a true freshman that comes in, say Arch Manning, for instance, Arch Manning right now, everybody in Austin, even though he is not going to be the starter day one as of right now, unless there's an injury, everybody believes that Arch Manning is the next great quarterback to be in college football until he loses, until he struggles. We've seen Joe Milton struggle at Michigan. And so now that's all people think about is, well, he can throw the fastball, but not the changeup.
We've seen him struggle at Tennessee.
He struggled at Tennessee. He had the starting job and lost it to Hooker. And then you see what happened in the Orange Bowl, and Tennessee fans watching go, wait a second, he's got the touch now. He's starting to work on the touch. If he has the touch, we're good. But more football fans remember the bad than the good. That's where I believe a lot of the drop-off comes, is with that, and the starting with the quarterback.
We were talking about this on the Buck Rising show in the context of Joe Milton as a pro prospect, because Greg Cosell doing his analysis on the install, all they talked about yesterday was Joe Milton, the things he needs to work on, his strengths, his weaknesses, obviously the measurables, all of those things are what excite prospects right now. But we looked at his completion percentage in 2021 versus 2022. Were you listening when we had this portion of the conversation?
Yes.
So there's no point in me quizzing you on it. Joe Milton completed completed passes at a 51% clip in 2021. He attempted 20 more passes in 2022 and improved that completion percentage by 13 percentage points at a 64% clip, no interceptions, and that includes the Orange Bowl performance against Clemson and a 31-14 win. So we did see that tangible improvement from Milton last year, but what does it mean on a long-term basis? What's that going to look like over the course of 12 games plus a bowl? Greg McElroy, who you can hear obviously on ESPN, Jocks 94.5 in Birmingham, our sister station with Cumulus Media, all over the place as a college football analyst, was talking about this and what he thinks of Tennessee as his number 18 preseason team in college football. This is Greg McElroy on College Football Daily.
A number 18 team is a team that was way up in the top 10, way up in the top 5, sniffed a playoff spot a year ago. I think they might come back to earth just a little bit. Not to the extent in which they're going to fall off the face of the earth, but I do believe the Tennessee Volunteers are poised for maybe just a little bit of a correction based on what they did last season. Now, I love Joe Milton's arm talent. I think he played great in the bowl game. I think he played great against Vanderbilt. I'm cautiously optimistic that he'll play great all season long this year. But there are questions for me. You lose the Bolitnikoff award-winning wide receiver. You also lose another big body wide receiver. I know he wasn't always available last year, but either way, this was a crazy good wide receiver core and an offensive line too that I think was really underappreciated.
Always college football, Greg McElroy's show with Omaha Productions. My apologies. So he says Tennessee will come back down to earth a bit. There will be a correction, is the way that Greg put it. Now, what you don't hear in that clip as he kind of lists out what Tennessee brings back at receiver on the defensive side of the ball, some of the improved depth. And in the end, Greg McElroy says he believes Tennessee to be a 9-3 type of team this year. So I don't want Tennessee fans to listen to that and run away with it and start tweeting Greg McElroy, telling him he's an idiot. He is predicting that Tennessee is going to be one game worse in 2023 than they were in 2022, but still a bit of a correction to the mean compared to the spike that was 2022 for Tennessee football.
I think the struggle for me with the 9-3 is 9-3 means just in your regular season. That, in my mind, means he believes that they're going to lose to Georgia, which is not an asinine thing to think. He believes that Tennessee will lose to Alabama in Bryant-Denny. Again, not a total asinine thing to think because it's happened for like the last 20 years. But outside of that, where's the third loss is my question, because historically you would say, well, what about that first SEC game you have against Florida? Billy Napier and Florida, not the same team that they have been in the past. Like, there's really a lot of question marks with Billy Napier. And we'll talk more about it next week with the SEC Media Days coming up. But Florida has possibly the worst quarterback in the conference.
Been a long time since Tennessee went down to Gainesville and won a football game.
It has been.
It's been decades.
And it's kind of like that mystical hump, like Kentucky going to Florida. Like they haven't defeated Florida in 30 years or whatever it was, that period of time that it was. Even though they were good enough, they still screwed up. Is that what it is, where they think the same thing can happen to Tennessee because of going down in the swamp and playing in Gainesville and doing that? Because from a team standpoint, and when you start putting down depth chart versus depth chart, Tennessee has a better team than Florida in 2023. So is that the one spot early in the season, third game of the year? You had the game here at Nissan that will most likely you can consider a home game because of how many Vols fans are going to be there. You have I call it the money game against Austin Peay, and then you go to Gainesville to play Florida. Is that what we're thinking? Is that the Florida game is going to be the one that could trip them up? Or is it South Carolina with Spencer Rattler coming in and what should be a revenge game for Tennessee after what happened last year?
Yeah, you have that game at home, September 30th. Give us your thoughts, 615-737-1045. Do you expect a regression to the mean for Tennessee? And if you do, just how much of one? Because that's a good question that you pose, Joe Hunk. Yes, the focus for Tennessee will be on going down and winning in Tuscaloosa for the first time since, I'd have to go back top of my head. I want to say 2005. Was that the Casey Clausen crazy overtime win over Alabama?
They could have won after that.
No.
But, somebody decided to go the wrong direction.
Actually, that might have even been 2003. I think 2005 might have been the 6-3 loss to Brody Croyle in Alabama. I don't know. We're running in circles with that. But so Tennessee does go to Tuscaloosa. Tennessee hosts Georgia this year.
The last win for Tennessee was 2003.
In Alabama. Okay, yes. That was that crazy overtime game.
Yeah,
that's right.
5 overtimes.
So beyond Alabama and Georgia, so that's the question you're posing here. Where's that third loss? If you're predicting 9-3, 8-4, where are those losses? South Carolina, that is certainly up for debate. I think South Carolina is a total wild card in the SEC East this year. You get them at home. Texas A&M. They're the wild card in the SEC West this year, maybe in the entire conference this year. You get them at home, October 14th.
Let's not forget, and I know people are going to, with Texas A&M, Bobby Petrino's your new OC.
Mm-hmm.
How much control is he going to have? Like, we think of Texas A&M, pro-style offense, 2 tight ends. That's the type of play. Is that going to be Texas A&M in 2023? Or is Jimbo Fisher going to let Bobby Petrino run the offense that he would like to run, and Texas A&M is a better football team than that? That's the reason why maybe they're the question mark in this. A lot of this, on paper, it doesn't make sense for you to say Florida. But you look at the other teams that Tennessee could face, then, okay, it would have to be something that happens in the season. In fact, we had somebody on the FMN Bank chat hop in and say right now, Brandon says that the money line right now has the Vols at -7.5 favored against Florida in Gainesville, which, remember, a lot of times the home team gets 3 points just because they're the home team. So it means really this is about a 10-point game that Vegas is seeing at the moment.
My big question is, are we totally out of the woods? If you're a Tennessee fan, do you believe Tennessee football is totally out of the woods when it comes to getting back to handling the teams that you should beat each and every year? Because I don't know that they are, because that didn't happen last year with the loss at South Carolina. Like, Tennessee has been trying to get back to this place where the focus finally shifts back to Florida, Georgia, Bama, right?
Yes.
Those are the 3 games. I mean, when Phil Fulmer said it when he hired Jeremy Pruitt, these are the 3 games you're judged on as the head coach at Tennessee. Jeremy Pruitt was judged on a whole lot more than that. But ultimately, when Tennessee's at its height, those are the 3 games that you're judged on. The problem for Tennessee football has been they have not been able to take care of the South Carolinas, the Vanderbilts, the Missouris on a year-to-year basis, even the Kentuckys from time to time, a team that Tennessee is so used to dominating over the years. So is Tennessee officially back to that point where the focus is Florida, Georgia, Bama? Because you got blown out at South Carolina last year.
It was, and yes, there was the injury with Hendon Hooker, and that plays into it. But this is where 2023 is so important with what you just said. Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Next year, you have to add Oklahoma into this, because next year is when the Sooners come in, and now you have to travel to Norman. So it's not just a Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma, because next season, we don't know dates or times or anything like that. you have to still play Florida. You still have to play Alabama. You still have to play Georgia. And now you have to play Oklahoma. That's in 2024. So that's how important the 2023 season is to this, direction that Josh Heupel is taking this team. That's how important it is for them to have a 10-plus win season, because you don't want to now have to deal with the Oklahoma and Texas issue with their recruiting style if you're only an 8-4 team or a 9-3 team in 2023.
615-737-1045. Jackson is in White Bluff to join the conversation. What's up, Jackson?
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Doing good.
Doing good, bro.
I think the Texas A&M game. I think that one's the one that could possibly trip Tennessee up this year. I feel like the Florida game, Tennessee should win. Honestly, I just don't see them losing Florida. This isn't the same Tennessee team. But I also think at Missouri could be like a possibly tricky game for Tennessee this next year. But me personally, I think that Tennessee needs to split. That they need to win 2 out of 3 against Florida, Georgia, and Alabama this year for sure.
Thanks for the call, Jackson.
Let me know what you guys think about that.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for that, bro.
615-737-1045.
I think the Florida one, to me, on July 13th, 2023, the year of our Lord, whatever, the Florida game to me seems like a game that Tennessee should go in. Now, may it be closer in the fourth quarter? Could it be a field goal game in the fourth quarter with about 7 minutes to go and Tennessee's driving down the field? Yes, it could absolutely be that. But to me, at the moment, looking at the way that Florida is designed, with the way that, again, a lot of people say that Florida may have the worst quarterback in the SEC this season, at least going into the season at the moment, then you have an idea of thinking you should be able to go into Gainesville and win. To me, the biggest question mark is still what is the Texas A&M game too. That game's October 14th. It's after a bye week, so you should be at least healthy and rested. But I still don't know what Texas A&M is going to be, because I think Texas A&M is kind of like what we see a lot of football teams of going, at some point in time, you've got to get it, right? Like at some point in time, you have these great recruiting classes. You have tons and tons and millions of dollars of money that you can throw at players if you wanted to bring them into the university using the NIL. Some point in time, this has to click. Like it just has to at Texas A&M, especially, again, because they want to be set up for next year with Texas and Oklahoma, because you know that the moment Texas gets in this thing, they want to be better. So that, to me, is the biggest question mark game on the schedule right now, not Florida.
Yeah, I mean, the last time, like Hendon Hooker, best Tennessee quarterback since Peyton Manning, you would say, right? Yes. Best single season since Peyton Manning. There's no doubt about that.
Single season, absolutely. Yeah. And had the impact on a team.
Yes.
Nobody's had the impact on the team like Peyton Manning had the impact on this team.
So ultimately, we can have these conversations, but like we mentioned, a year ago today, we were talking about, man, if Tennessee could just go 8-4 in year 2 of Josh Heupel. The last time we were talking about a regression like this was Peyton Manning running out of eligibility. And there's going to be a regression, right? Peyton's out the door. He should have won the Heisman. He didn't, but he's the number 1 pick. He's gone. T. Martin's your quarterback, and they win the national championship. Now, this isn't the 90s. I'm not saying because that happened in 1998 that this is going to happen in 2023. Tennessee's trying to build back to that point, that even when losing a player of that talent, they have the type of talent in the trenches, the depth, the coaching staff to win a national championship anyway. Tennessee's not there. They're not. If you don't think that there is still a significant gap in talent between Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia, you are very sadly mistaken. I'm sorry. That is the standard Tennessee's trying to get to. Not top 10 recruiting classes, but top 3, top 1 recruiting classes.
There is a major difference. On the recruiting trail, you can go back through history and you can look at all the national champions for the last 20 years. Outside of maybe one Clemson team, every single national champion has had a top 5 recruiting class. So Tennessee last year having a top 10, that gets you into the conversation of New Year's 6 every single season. That's what you're trying to get into. You want to be in the conversation of, I think this is the year where they have the talent. The problem is, and I think this is one thing that you may be saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is if Tennessee stays healthy and their starting 22 remain on the field as much as possible, Tennessee could be a 10 or 11 win football team, maybe even 12. But it's the depth behind them. That's what it is. The reason why Georgia and Alabama can be successful as long as they have, Ohio State can be successful for the length of the time they have, is because whenever a senior goes down or a junior goes down, they have a talented freshman that comes in and starts showing out. And you go, oh, wait, yeah, this guy was a 5-star. I forgot about that. He was a 5-star on a lot of websites, and he most likely was going to be your starting safety next season anyway, and look how great he's playing. It's the depth part. This same way in the NFL. It's about the depth. Tennessee does not have the depth at the moment if they lose a key player.
That's what's interesting this year, though, because the depth is better this year than it was last year.
Yep.
But you don't have, obviously, well, we don't know. We don't know what you have in Joe Milton on a full season basis compared to what you had with Hendon Hooker. We'll continue this conversation. 615-737-1045. We'll take your calls, but want to get to this when we come back. The most impactful Nashville sports duo in their respective leagues. Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons in the NFL. Roman Yossi and UC Saros in the NHL. Walker Zimmerman and Hani Mukhtar in the MLS. Not who's the biggest star of that group. We know it's Henry and Jeff. Not who has the most followers. We know it's Henry and Jeff. But in how they are viewed in their respective league, which duo is most impactful? 615-737-1045. It's Blaine and Mickey with Lucas Panzica and Joe Hunk until 3 o'clock on 1045 The Zone. Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons in the NFL, Roman Yossi and UC Saros in the NHL, Walker Zimmerman and Hani Mukhtar in the MLS. Which Nashville sports duo has the most impact in their respective league, the biggest stars in their league? We know Henry and Jeff in the NFL run the world. That's obvious. I'm talking about NFL circles, NHL circles, MLS circles. Which duo has the biggest impact? I mean, when you consider Jeffrey Simmons, most recently, top 10 defensive tackles list came out on ESPN. Big Jeff ranked third. He was second last year, third this year. Without a doubt, considered in the upper echelon of defensive tackles in the National Football League. Signed his 4-year, $94 million extension earlier this offseason. Running back top 10 list. Jeremy Fowler, by the way, on ESPN, he surveys coaches, execs, scouts around the league, and they put together these lists of top 10 players with each respective position. Running backs will come out tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see where Derrick Henry lands.
Well, in just a few seconds ago, we started the show off by talking about Quinnen Williams and his 4-year, $96 million deal, which is $2 million more than Jeffrey Simmons. It's $6 million more than Dexter Lawrence, and those three defensive tackles are in the top 5. Chris Jones, that we talked about, is expected to get an extension in all of this, so that goes back to the impact that we're talking about with Jeff Simmons. And my question about this is, because when you asked me this question during break, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, but the whole thing for me is like, when we talk about the most impactful for like Big Jeff, is it because of the fact that he's going to need to be double or possibly even triple teamed, depending on what it is? Open up something for Harold Landry, open up something for somebody else to come through. Like, are we talking about that? With Derrick Henry, the question mark with him when it comes to the running back position is the moment he's on the field, I don't care how many guys are supposed to be on the line of scrimmage. The moment he's on the field, every single player in the front 7 pays attention to 22. That's it. Like, just him being on the field totally changes the aspect of what the defense is looking at. That's pretty impactful. But what's the equivalent of that? Like, say, I know we can talk about with soccer, and we'll get to it in a second, but what's the impact when you talk about hockey? We're talking about the duos. For hockey, what is that impact? What are we talking about? Changes the game on the ice that these two players do that's so impactful.
I mean, I don't think there is a position really in any major sport that can raise the floor of a team's performance more than a goaltender can in hockey, right? Like, yes. I think a goaltender can turn any average team into a postseason team in the NHL.
Don't forget that when the Mighty Ducks, and they were at the time at the Mighty Ducks, when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals and lost to New Jersey, Jean-Sebastien Giguère was still the MVP of the Stanley Cup Final. Like, he would made that big of an impact, even though he lost and he was the goalie. Because even without him, that would have been over even quicker than what it was.
So, if you look at the Preds portion of this, Roman Yossi, 4-time All-Star. UC Saros, 2-time All-Star. UC Saros yet to win the Vezina for the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. Roman Yossi has won the Norris Trophy once for the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. That's pretty impressive. You stack it up against Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons, and I understand what you're saying about what you have to do in accounting for them. I do think last year, a lot of that could have been a product, too, of what the Titans did or didn't have on the outside.
Absolutely.
And I think the market and kind of how the Titans are viewed in the grand scheme of things in the National Football League could work against them in that sense, right? Like Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons, are they considered a bigger star duo in the NFL, big picture, to the neutral observer than Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb? You tell me. I'm like throwing that question out there. Jackson, you can answer it too. Are Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry as a duo considered bigger stars, not by Titans fans, by Billy and Sheboygan? Are Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry, is Sheboygan even in America?
I don't even know where Sheboygan is. I'm like, where's
It's
Sheboygan?
like one of those cities that people just throw out there as a so-and-so, but I have no idea if that's a real place or where it is.
First time you said it, I was like, is Bill Sheboygan a city? Like, what? And then I went, oh, he said Bill in Sheboygan. Okay.
It's in Wisconsin.
Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Is it Wisconsin?
Does Bill in Sheboygan, Wisconsin think that Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry as a duo are more impactful and are bigger stars than Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb? Y'all tell me.
I would say Bill in Sheboygan doesn't. just because he's in Wisconsin and he pays attention more to the Browns than probably what he would the Titans.
Okay, all right.
That's the only reason. Because I think that, again, Nashville's going to continue to get this disrespect. Like that. And so if you start talking about in the essence of the league itself, Nashville's going to get disrespected. There are very few teams that there are people in the NFL that pay attention to what the Titans are doing more than X team. For instance, Hard Knocks is happening. We talked about Quinnen Williams. We know that's happening this season.
Yeah, with the Jets.
Not AJ, but Aaron Rodgers, all of that. If the Titans were on Hard Knocks this year, they wouldn't get the ratings. Like, they wouldn't. NFL Network would be doing that release of Hard Knocks, episode 1, like the lowest viewed Hard Knocks in however many years. Like, that's going to happen because people don't look at Nashville in that way. I think that's where, look at A.J. Brown. There are people that knew A.J. Brown existed. Oh, great wide receiver. I've got him on my fantasy team. He does a great job. The moment he gets to Philly, A.J. Brown could be one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. Like, that's because of the jersey and the helmet that he is wearing, it automatically changed. We knew it here. They saw it there. So the essence of this with Derrick Henry, everybody in the league knows how great Derrick Henry is because of the fact that he's literally put half the league on a poster. He has done somebody and given somebody a stiff arm into a wall somewhere. But I don't think they have that presence the way that somebody would think of some different team.
Jackson, what? Okay, we'll move Bill out of Sheboygan and we'll put him in Cheyenne, Wisconsin. Or no, Cheyenne. What's Cheyenne the capital of? We'll put him in Omaha, Nebraska. All right. What is Bill in Omaha?
Cheyenne.
Does he think that Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry are a bigger star duo than Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb? That's just an example. Such a stupid conversation.
Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm sitting here thinking about
Wyoming, not Wisconsin.
Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Jackson, yes or no?
I think he goes Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was a number 1 overall pick. That's why I put
fair.
that.
That's true.
Myles Garrett was a number 1 overall pick. Nick Chubb was a star in the SEC. I mean, Derrick Henry was too. So
both of those guys,
two canceled
both of those
themselves
guys
out.
were stars.
All
4 of those guys we've just named were mega stars in the SEC. Garrett certainly a more high profile. I agree with you there.
Yeah, number 1 overall pick. Jeffrey Simmons, obviously, it hurts him. He plays in Nashville. That's really what it is.
Well, it hurt him that he played in Nashville and that he played for Mississippi State because, again, 2 very unsexy teams to the national media. By the way, if you go to Cheyenne and you ever want to do anything, there is an Old West tour that you could possibly do to learn about the Old West in Wyoming.
Ooh.
Just letting you know that you could go there and enjoy that.
So Henry, 3-time Pro Bowler. As we look at the accolades, we already looked at Yossi and Saros with the Preds.
Yeah, help me with the soccer.
Henry,
that's the one I need
Offensive Player of the Year, and Jeffrey Simmons, 2-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, both second team. I do think the answer is soccer because with Walker Zimmerman, you're talking about this is the only Walker Zimmerman, 2-time MLS Defender of the Year. Hani Mukhtar, the defending MVP and currently the favorite to win MVP again. It's never been done in Major League Soccer history to go back-to-back with the same player winning the MVP award.
Right.
So in the context of MLS and Walker Zimmerman as well, what he is with the U.S. men's national team, a starter at the World Cup, a fixture at this point in his career in that lineup. And Hani Mukhtar has been the most unstoppable player in the league. I mean, since the start of the 2022 season, Hani's recorded 36 goals, 20 assists, more than any other MLS player. I think the most whopping statistic when it comes to Hani Mukhtar. Nashville SC, since coming into the league in 2020, has scored 161 goals. Hani has been involved in 91 of them. He has scored or assisted 91 of them. That's insanity. That's a 57% clip.
Well, and so you just mentioned it. Has a chance for back-to-back MVPs, has all this. Derrick Henry could break the rushing record for a single season, and that would just get him into the conversation for MVP. Like, it just would. Like, because it's a quarterback award, it's a biased award, he would have to break the rushing record for him to be even in the conversation. You're talking about guys that have won MVP awards. UC Saros probably never going to win an MVP award. I mean, it's just Yossi probably never going to win an MVP award. So if you want to look at it from that standpoint as far as what the league values the player in the awards category, then yes, you would probably go MLS, NFL, and then NHL because Derrick Henry and Big Jeff could win Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think there's a path for Derrick Henry to win the rushing record unless he rushed for 3,000 yards. That's just my opinion on it because of how difficult it is to win that award by anybody other than a quarterback in the NFL.
615-737-1045. The most impactful Nashville sports duo in their respective league. Bill in Mount Juliet joins us on 1045 The Zone. What's up, Bill?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. Just who's Walker Zimmerman?
Walker Zimmerman, Nashville Soccer Club defender.
Okay, yeah, I've never heard of him. I mean, I don't. Why would you say they're bigger than Simmons and Henry?
Okay, well,
I mean,
Bill,
that's
see,
ridiculous.
I was afraid of this. Thanks for the call, Bill. Already missing out on the point of the conversation. This is not. This is not who's the bigger star, Derrick Henry or Walker Zimmerman.
Oh no, Derrick Henry 100%.
Okay,
Derrick Henry 100%.
Listening comprehension is important. In their respective league, in MLS circles, Walker Zimmerman and Hani Mukhtar are viewed in a much more impactful light than the combination of Derrick Henry and Jeffrey Simmons in the NFL. Jeffrey Simmons and Derrick Henry are dominant players. You have to account for them. But it's completely different conversations. This isn't about who's the bigger star in the grand scheme of things.
Because, again, in the state of Tennessee, in the entire world, or at least in the United States, NFL is going to rule. It just is. Okay, so it's not the point of that question. What it meant is if you have three circles, one for NFL, one for NHL, and one for MLS, in that circle, how big is that star? That's what he was trying to say. You weren't trying to say that in some weird way that an MLS player is bigger than what Derrick Henry is. It has nothing to do with that. It means in their respective sport, in their lane, what they're greatest at. That's what you're talking about.
July Sports Talk Radio. Gotta love it. 615-737-1045.
12 days.
Hour number 2, Blaine and Mickey coming up next on 1045 The Zone.
Lake lovers, listen up. A highly anticipated lakefront resort, golf, and marina community is releasing a never-before limited number of lake lots to the public, one day only. Saturday, July 29th, experience lake living at a fraction of the price. Wooded estate lots from just $64.9. Incredible sunset waterfront lots, $20K off. Lake villa packages from $349.9. Private golf cart access to a new marina and resort. 10 miles of walking trails, 3.5 miles of shoreline. Brand new 26,000 square foot clubhouse. Waterfront concerts overlooking a beautiful lake. Pickleball, pools, on-site coffee shop, and much more. Play on the lake or simply relax at the Waterfront Restaurant just over 30 minutes from scenic Knoxville, Tennessee. Financing available. Call to secure your private tour appointment. Times are limited. Enjoy life on the water, fresh air, boat rides, and sunshine. Celebrate the lake life and make memories. Limited property release Saturday, July 29th. Visit us at lakelivingtn.com or better yet, give us a call at 865-408-9992. Invest in something real.
It is 2:03. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Big deal in the NFL as Quinnen Williams, the New York Jets defensive tackle, agrees to a 4-year extension worth $96 million, $66 million of it guaranteed. Not the only contract extension announced today, as the Southeastern Conference and Commissioner Greg Sankey have agreed to an extension. That deal will run through 2028 at the earliest. Wednesday, the Pro Football Hall of Fame announced its semifinalists for the coach and contributor category for the class of 2024. Longtime Oilers and Titans owner Bud Adams made the list, along with longtime Oilers and Titans scout C.O. Brocato. Tennessee basketball news: former Harvard forward Chris Ledlam announced his transfer to Tennessee this offseason. He has re-entered the transfer portal, per a report by Matt Zenitz. Ledlam led Harvard in scoring and rebounding last season. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Welcome in hour number 2 of Blaine and Bicky on 104.5 The Zone, except it's not Blaine Bishop, it's Joe Hunk, and it's not Mickey Ryan, it's Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is producing. Glad to have you with us on this Thursday afternoon. The countdown continues, less than 2 weeks to go until Titans training camp at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Just days to go until Monday, SEC Media Days happening right here in Nashville at the Grand Hyatt. Joe Hunk, it is going to be a madhouse over there. We are going to be there 6 to 6. 104.5 The Zone, live and local from start to finish at the Grand Hyatt. I imagine this is not your first SEC Media Days, with all the work you did in Alabama. Do you know which one this will be for you?
This is number 12 for me. This will be number 12.
All the other 11 in Hoover?
Because
you went to Atlanta for it?
I've been to Atlanta for it. Now, I've worked behind the scenes as well for a lot of this as well, but all the ones in Birmingham. The one in Atlanta, I was in Atlanta for the first one there, and then all the ones that we've done here as well. So for SEC Media Days, for this coming up this year, I'm interested to see the design and the layout, because Atlanta has been different than what you saw with Birmingham, because Birmingham in the hotel, you have all of the fans that are all sitting inside of the lobby of the hotel, and all the coaches and players walk by, sign autographs and all this. So it's kind of a little bit more interactive. Whereas in Atlanta, everybody was set up in the College Football Hall of Fame. And so it was a little bit more spread out that way.
And it's an attraction. I mean, tourists go to the Hall of Fame.
The College Football Hall of Fame, if you have never been there in Atlanta, is absolutely stunning. Yeah. Between the different play calls that you can go through for great moments throughout college history, all of the videos, all of the history of when it comes back to when college football was first getting started to when it was like basically rugby, but and it started to evolve in the Ivy League. All of this history that you can learn, the football field itself, where you will see a lot of the stuff. For matter of fact, where the football field is, that's also where they do the College Football Awards show in December. So this is a really cool thing. If you've never been to it, you've got to go at some point in time. We talked about baseball earlier. If the Braves are a reason you go to Atlanta, go early and go to the College Football Hall of Fame. I'm really interested to see all the things that Nashville's doing, because basically the way the SEC is they look at the Big 12 and they look at what the Big 10's doing, and they just go, cool, that's cute. We're going to have a concert on Broadway, and we're going to shut down Broadway and make it nothing but SEC. So have fun with that, because we're about to take this thing up 20 different notches, and this thing this year is going to be wild.
Big 12 Media Days happening in Dallas as we speak. We'll rank the SEC Media Days locations after the fact, when the week concludes after Thursday next week, and we'll rank them: Nashville, Atlanta, Hoover, see how it shakes out. A lot of ranking happening this time of year, lists, rankings. Warren Sharp of Sharp Football Analysis put out a ranking of every offensive line unit in the NFL, 1 through 32. Joe Hunk, where'd the Titans end up?
So before I let you know where the Titans end up, because I want to make sure that you understand the reasoning for this, because kind of like what we were talking about just a minute ago with best duo in their respective sport that represent the city of Nashville, I want you to understand that these numbers are based on a few things. The guidelines for this that Warren put out were specific voter, and it was only the requirements of this was focused on the upcoming season only. 2023, the 3 preseason games, the 17 regular season games. This is what it is based on. The number 1 offensive line in the NFL going into 2023, according to Sharp, is the Philadelphia Eagles. What's interesting is the number 2 is the Detroit Lions. I say that because let's do just like what you do in The Price is Right and spin that sucker all the way down to the bottom. And there's the Tennessee Titans at number 32. This is, again, for the 2023 season. What Sharp says is in 2022, the Titans left tackles allowed pressure at a league worst 9.4% rate. We know who that was. More than 2% points worse than any other team. Andre Dillard and rookie Peter Skoronski is going to be competing for that job, but they're unlikely to see any significant upgrade at the offensive line position as a whole. So we're excited, you, me, Jackson, literally everybody, because Ran Carthon has brought in Dillard, because Ran Carthon has, Ruse, because he has drafted Skoronski, because of all the stuff that he's done, brought in Brunskill, all these offensive linemen, and Sharp basically said, that's cool, you guys are still going to suck.
To me, the logic from Warren Sharp is essentially they were so bad last year that I don't care what they did this offseason. It can't possibly be, you can't take that big of a jump. Like, that's essentially what I read here, because he doesn't break down what the Titans did to address the offensive line, because the Titans addressed the offensive line more than any other position group this offseason. Like you said, Daniel Brunskill, who has started games, has played in games at every position, all 5 positions along the offensive line, returning Aaron Brewer, Andre Dillard, you mentioned Skoronski, some of the depth pieces that come back. Obviously, Nicholas Petit-Frere being out for 6 games will have a big impact. So I'm kind of torn here because Warren Sharp doesn't really do, and Warren Sharp is fantastic at what he does. Really good work. He's a great follow on Twitter, great analytical work of the NFL, but there's just not a lot of homework done here in my mind. Well, the crux of it is, they were really bad last year. I know they made some moves, but I don't see how it could possibly be that much better.
Well, and I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that you didn't, and as of at this moment, you have not signed a humongous name on the offensive line position, which I think a lot of people want to talk about is, look, we're all focused on one wide receiver. We know who the wide receiver is. Literally, that man right now could go and eat at like a Cane somewhere in Louisiana, and there'd be 64 pictures of him doing so and trying to piece together what sauce he got represents what team. Like, that's what he would be doing at this moment. But from an offensive line standpoint, and you ask any NFL person, it all starts with the offensive line when it comes to the offense. A lot of these players are coming in because Ran Carthon is mentioning it like a little while ago. This is a Moneyball thing. This is about analytics based on what they do, what they can do, and the amount of time that they can actually spend on the field. Because right now, I know that we want this offensive line to be the best in the NFL so that Derrick Henry can get to 2,000 yards and Ryan Tannehill can throw 25 touchdowns. But the whole idea of it to me is, first, you just want 5 guys on your offensive line that are going to be there for 17 games, because that didn't happen much at all last year. I mean, especially after Lewan went down in the first play against the Buffalo Bills, your offensive line wasn't even close to the same for the remainder of the season. That's where I think a lot of this is just get players on the field that are healthy and can give Ryan Tannehill more than 2.1 seconds to throw the football. That's how I see it.
Yeah, the turning point of going from week 6 to the bye week to week 8 is going to be really interesting on how NPF comes into the fold. On who gets that starting right tackle job, how those pieces shift around, something I'm sure the Titans have already been planning on how they're going to be prepared for those training camp position battles. But you talk about a group that needs that time to gel and learn to play together, then you have to reshuffle and reset a little bit when Nicholas Petit-Frere does come back into the fold.
Here's a question. What if they don't have to? Like, it sounds crazy because NPF started like every single game last year. But if you are coaching the Titans and your offensive line, we have talked about for 6 games, you want them to be 3-3 would be great. 4-2 would be amazing. 5-1, unbelievable. But what if this offensive line plays well together for the first 6 games? Like, what if they have that chemistry? Like, you talk about the talent so many times. It's about this team has this much better talent than that team. Why is this team not that great? Well, they don't have the chemistry. Like this, it's all about the chemistry of the team and the pieces piecing together to fit this team that is what the coach is wanting. What if this offensive line actually gels without MPF? Like, then what do you do? Because MPF then comes back and then he could be a guy that's in the rotation. But what if MPF being away may be a great thing for the Titans and for whatever they have to come up with in the training camp is going to be better? It may not be the case. It may not be. But we automatically want to say this Titans team is going to struggle before MPF gets back. What if these 5 guys actually work way better together and Mike Vrabel has to sit down and go, what if we just don't change anything? Like, what if we don't?
Be a good problem to have.
It'd be an amazing problem to have.
Nicholas Petit-Frere will be able to practice throughout the course of training camp, and you can go and watch some of that offensive line battle taking shape as the Titans have put out some training camp dates that fans can enter a lottery for to go and watch. They've tweeted it out on their social media, TennesseeTitans.com, the website. You can go and check it out. So those dates are Saturday, July 29th, calling that Back Together weekend from 9:15 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. Tuesday, August 1st, same times. Friday, August 4th, Thursday, August 10th, and joint practice with the New England Patriots happening on Tuesday, August 22nd. So 5 dates that fans will be able to go and watch training camp, including the joint practice with the New England Patriots, which could be pretty interesting depending on where DeAndre Hopkins lands. TennesseeTitans.com if you want to go and enter that lottery. But when we come back, Cooper Petagna of 24/7 Sports covers recruiting, covers college football as a whole, and there's a lot to dig into. Where does Northwestern go from here? Some key recruiting battles coming up involving Tennessee, much more to get to with Cooper Petagna of 24/7 Sports. Coming up next, it's Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone.
School's out, but Tennessee's summer season is definitely in session. So if you haven't taken care of it yet, Cool Ray can keep you cool with a $69 AC tune-up. Much like maintenance on your car, you want to take care of your system before there's larger issues ahead. And maybe you've already noticed that the AC unit is not acting right. They have trusted certified technicians on standby ready to find the fix so you don't break a sweat. This includes no service fee with any repair. And maybe things are past the point of repair on your AC unit. Going on now, you can save up to $1,250 on brand new Timstar home comfort systems. Plus, they boost the lifetime parts and labor warranty on new Timstar home comfort systems, including $0 in repair costs for the life of the system. And you won't break a sweat or the bank with that kind of built-in warranty. Nobody can defy and beat that. So don't forget, Cool Ray isn't just there for your HVAC needs. They're protecting your entire home thanks to Cool Ray's electrical team who can help you find the perfect whole home generator just in time for the stormy season. So schedule your next visit online at coolray.com. No phone call, no wait, no worries. You pick the date and time that works for you. That's coolray.com.
It's talking season. SEC Media Days starts Monday right here in Nashville. Big 12 Media Days underway in Dallas. It is that time of year. So we bring on Cooper Petagna of 24/7 Sports. Much to discuss with the recent news in the world of college football. A lot about conference realignment that coaches are being asked about. And in the world of recruiting, which is a world that Cooper Petagna works in and does it very, very well. Cooper, thanks so much for being here, man. I'm Blaine and Mickey. How you doing?
Hey, appreciate you having me, man. I'm doing great.
Well, appreciate you coming on. And Cooper, I saw you tweeting about this. First thing I'll ask you, Northwestern and the direction of this program before we get into some recruiting stuff. Obviously, that's the biggest story in the college football world over the course of the last week. I was talking about this with Blaine Bishop, who's not in today, Joseph Hunkapiller hanging out with me. But we were talking off the air about a program in Northwestern that has been able to remain stable, remain afloat under Pat Fitzgerald for so long, and people have kind of marveled at how Fitzgerald has done that. Obviously, that reputation will be affected now, but is this a program that's in significant danger of just straight up bottoming out moving forward here with the addition of USC and UCLA and doing away with divisions, which has certainly helped Northwestern find success in the Big Ten?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think they're at a crossroads right now in terms of this hire, and I think they have an opportunity to kind of get this right. I think you look at the last 2 years in Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald 1-11, 3-9, 7-2. Before that, he's done some incredible things and deserves a ton of credit for the job of building up that program to what he had built it up to. Now it's time for them to transition into a new era of college football. So to me, they have a variety of options. I think it's a lot better job than people give it credit for. I know it's tough. I know it's tough from an admission standpoint, but if you get the right guy in there, you get the right fit, a person with a vision and in terms of the admissions process and what that looks like, I think that program can be successful. So I'm eager to see what they're going to do. And I think it's actually going to end up attracting a lot more talent to that position than a lot of people think.
Well, and that leads me to wonder about the recruiting itself when it comes to the players, because we know that Northwestern's close to one of the most amazing cities in the world, at least in my opinion. But it is one place that, again, you still have academic standards. It's very similar to what we have in Nashville with Vanderbilt. What do recruits and things think about the facilities itself because of the upgrades that the team has made and the university with the practice facility and what they're doing with Ryan Field and that sort of stuff? What do players think whenever you hear from them?
I do think that's important, especially for Northwestern on the national scene. There's only a handful of programs from an academic standpoint that I think are going to be able to recruit nationally and be able to have that presence in a living room. Not only with the prospect, but with the decision makers in the family as well. I think Northwestern's one of those institutions, and you got them right there in the heart of Middle America in Chicago, and they've obviously made some investments. You talked about Ryan Field as well. The investment that they're making there. So, yes, I don't think it's a substantial significance in overall attraction. I think the degree itself and the fit of the university and the opportunity to play in one of the two best conferences in all of college football. I think when you combine those things together and you have an understanding of how to sell that and how to package that, you can attract the right type of people to that program. Now, that being said, it's a difficult task, right? We saw David Shaw struggle with this at Stanford, and Troy Taylor has been given it a pretty good go over there, right, in his first couple months, and they've been impactful on the recruiting trail. When you operate at one of these high academic institutions, your margin of error is razor thin. That means everything you do on and off the field is going to show up in your bottom line at some point. So they have to be better. They have to be better than 98% of other programs in the FBS and in the Power 5 when it comes to talent identification, evaluation, so on and so forth, and their execution of that. So is it a difficult job? Yes. But with the right person, I think that program can be successful in the Big Ten.
Well, in going down south, we heard the comments about Texas and Oklahoma this week and about them not, or they are carrying the conference in recruiting in this. Like, you do this for a living. First off, was the statement accurate that they don't carry the conference when it comes to recruiting?
I think they do carry the conference when it comes to recruiting. Listen, you had Texas, Oklahoma, number 3 and number 4 in the country, at least, how we saw it at 24/7 Sports. And, in terms of top-end talent, there's Texas, there's Oklahoma, and then there's everybody else. Now, TCU, Sonny Dykes, you got to give them a lot of credit. Those guys played in the national championship last year. I think they capitalized not only in high school, but in the transfer portal as well. They ended up finishing in the top 20. Outside of that, there's a lot of opportunity in the Big 12. So right now, it's going to be interesting to see who kind of steps into that vacancy and is able to tap in to a talent-rich state like Texas, because the Big 12 seems completely open, and there's a lot of opportunity. And I'll tell you what, teams like TCU, teams like Texas Tech with Joey McGuire, those would be the 2 teams that I would watch. I think Oklahoma State's got an opportunity. I'd love to see more from Dave Aranda on the recruiting trail as well. But to me, there's a lot of opportunity in the Big 12. I think Central Florida is another program that I would have my eyes on. And before Luke Fickell left, I expected Cincinnati to do a lot of damage. So I don't really know. But no, I don't think that's an accurate statement. I think Texas and Oklahoma were definitely carrying the conference in terms of top-end talent.
Yeah, it's hard to find a year where Texas and Oklahoma are not the number 1 and 2 team in some form or fashion at the top of those Big 12 team recruiting rankings on 24/7 Sports. Cooper Petagna with us on 104.5 The Zone, recruiting analyst for 247 Sports, covers college football at Petagna 247 Sports. I was going to keep it there, Cooper, when it comes to these newcomers in the Big 12. There's a bit of irony in that when you say it's totally wide open, because the Big 12 on the field is totally wide open this year, right? I feel like that's the Power 5 conference that it is hardest to make a preseason pick to win when Texas hasn't won it in X amount of years. And obviously Oklahoma with the struggles in year 1 under Brent Venables hoping to make a jump, but there certainly isn't a sense of security in Norman that that's going to happen in year 2, I wouldn't think. So just of the newcomers, of the UCFs, the BYUs, and the Houstons, who do you feel has done the best job of doing the legwork in their previous stop as far as a conference is concerned, and maybe is best equipped to kind of step into the Big 12 with the most momentum in recruiting?
I think Central Florida, not only because Gus Malzahn's experience, and you can look at all these guys too, right? I mean, you can look at Dana Holgorsen in Houston, obviously the experience he had at West Virginia, Kalani Sitake. It's not like those guys have had a cakewalk schedule either. And then Cincinnati, Satterfield as well. So, I would say UCF. I think they're the best position. I think geographically as well in terms of recruiting landscape. I think they've become a nice little hub, especially in the transfer portal for FBS Power 5 talent, as really kind of a bounce back program. A lot of guys that go out of state from the state of Florida end up hovering back to Central Florida. It's a nice location. It's a big student population. I think it's a nice landing spot, but I kind of like what UCF has going. So I would expect that to be a transition. You got Satterfield in year 1. I think Houston's going to end up being a school that's going to benefit a lot, especially in the state of Texas. Going to the Big 12, I see that more long-term than short-term. And then BYU, I don't really know. It's going to be interesting from a recruiting footprint standpoint. I wonder if they start kind of going down south a little bit more. So right now it would be UCF for my money, but I think the other 3 schools are well positioned as well.
Now, Gus Malzahn certainly has the experience recruiting up against the big guns, formerly obviously at Auburn, now at UCF. Switching gears a little bit, Cooper, as we'll come back to the SEC Media Days happening here in Nashville next week. But the next big date on the minds of certainly Tennessee fans, I imagine Bama and Georgia fans as well, 4-star wide receiver Amari Jefferson announcing his commitment August 5th from Baylor High School in Chattanooga. Those are the hats on the table, Bama, Georgia, Tennessee. We were talking a couple of days ago about Josh Heupel and the promise of building a program rather than a team and what we saw with Tennessee in 2022. And it feels to me like this is one of those moments that are pivotal in taking the steps and building a program that can compete with the likes of Alabama and Georgia. What do you feel on where Amari Jefferson might be leaning and kind of what the expectation should be for that August 5th commitment?
Yeah, I don't have a feel. I was kind of, I was reading up on it a little bit this morning. Ryan Callahan does a great job for our network, and he was kind of breaking it down. And it seems like even though Amari Jefferson has already OV'd all 3 of these programs at Bama, Georgia, Tennessee, he's going to try to make visits to all of them again before he makes a decision. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens there. But when you look at Tennessee, Amari Jefferson himself, he kind of mentioned, hey, I like the plan to be able to get on the field early. And you think about what Tennessee's lost at that position, even last year, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, some of the guys that they have coming back, Brew McCoy. I think Amari Jefferson is a guy that, one, he's incredibly versatile. You can play him on the perimeter as an X. You can put him inside as well. You can also put him in the backfield. He is a very natural football player and has a ton of positional value. So in terms of on-field fit, that's what I can give you. I like the on-field fit at Tennessee, and Tennessee's got a ton of weapons. You know, guys like Cameron Seldon they brought in last year out of Virginia. You think of guys like Nathan Leacock out of North Carolina, Braylon Staley out of South Carolina. I love how they are building their receiver room, and I get excited, honestly, out of those three programs. I get excited about Amari Jefferson the most at Tennessee in Knoxville and Josh Heupel's offense. And physically, I mean, he's a kid that's ready to play day one in the SEC. Now, in terms of the contribution, whether or not he's going to be a starter, I do think Tennessee's offense gives him the most opportunity at the next level. So if I had to pick objectively, just based on football, I think Tennessee's the best fit for him.
Well, to this point in the Heupel era, Cooper, Josh Heupel has shown a propensity to have a pretty strict rotation of three wide receivers. And you're seeing the likes of Walker Merrill, the former four-star from Brentwood, transferring out, and receivers kind of coming and going, because that seems to be a really tough rotation to crack, 3, maybe 4, because of how fast this team runs the offense. Have you gotten any sense that this has impacted recruiting in one way or another with receivers that look at maybe a receiver room that's already got a lot of bodies and saying, okay, yes, I may be ready to play day one, but how do I know that that rotation will be ready for me to step into it?
Sure. No, I think that's a great question. If anything, and I haven't got a hunch on this either way, but if anything, I think it's positive, right? You look at what Tennessee's been able to do. I talked about that position of the two guys and Hyatt and Tillman and the volume of targets that they have coming their way. I think it's only a positive. And you look at what Tennessee's been able to do with the receiver position in the last 2 cycles. Listen, if that deters 1 or 2 prospects away that you have on your board, then they're probably not the right guy anyway. Right? You kind of want the guys that are going to come in and be able to battle, know that they're going to have to go up against some stiff competition to be able to crack the lineup. And then at the end of the day, hey, if I can crack number 3, number 4 in the depth chart, I know for me, there's not many places in the country that are going to be able to get me the volume of targets like Josh Heupel is in his offense at Tennessee.
Cooper Petagna, 24/7 Sports with us on 104.5 The Zone.
Cooper, earlier we were talking about Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama because those are basically the marquee teams in the SEC in 2023. And we talked 22 versus 22. There's a lot of similarities. But once you start to get into the depth chart and you start going to the number 2s and the number 3s, it's where Alabama and Georgia kind of separates themselves. With the transfer portal, with recruiting in 2023, the way that Josh Heupel did it, how is the depth when you look at this Tennessee team compared to an Alabama and Georgia? And are we starting to get closer when it comes to the way those teams are looking?
I definitely think Josh Heupel, Tennessee, is starting to close the gap. That being said, I think a lot of people need to understand Alabama, Georgia are typically in a league of their own when it comes to recruiting. When it comes down to the number 1, number 2 ranked teams, when it comes to recruiting, and you start to separate 3, 4, and 5, there's a big gap there, right? You might be close by a number, but in terms of what you see out of quality, there's typically a significant gap, and I think Alabama and Georgia have done a tremendous job. Georgia especially, since 2016, Kirby Smart has been lights out on the recruiting trail. That being said, Josh Heupel, for me, has done a tremendous job not only at the quarterback position, the skill spots, finding offensive linemen that fit them schematically. I love what he's done on the front 7 over the last couple of years. I mean, you think about guys like David Hobbs, Arian Carter, Caleb Herring. They are upgrading their front 7 talent tremendously, and they've done that on the back end of their secondary as well. So all else equal, right? If all else is equal, you got a guy in Nico Iamaleava and a handful of other playmakers out on the edge, and we've seen the potency of Tennessee's offense. Tennessee is going to be difficult to stop. And what we saw this past year, in my opinion, that's just the beginning of what these guys are going to be and where they're heading. So I'm excited, and he's got a tremendous bevy of talent heading to Knoxville. And I think the equalizer for Tennessee is Josh Heupel and that offensive system. And until somebody learns how to stop it, and obviously Georgia had success, but they've also had 25 draft picks over the last 2 years, right? That's more than any other program in the common draft era. So at some point that's going to balance out. Maybe it doesn't, but I love Tennessee long term in the SEC East, and I don't expect them to go anywhere. And to me, they're the biggest threat to Georgia in that side of the division.
So you mentioned the equalizer that could be that offense with Tennessee football. How much more would Tennessee have to close that gap for the equalizer to be enough to start talking about Tennessee as a national championship contender? I mean, just how far do you think Tennessee is from getting over that barometer where you look at them talent-wise right there with the likes of Alabama and Georgia, even if they can be slightly below because of the equalizer that could be the offense?
Yeah, I don't think they're that far at all, quite honestly. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Joe Milton. Like I said, I kind of expect that. I don't want to say the Orange Bowl to be the floor, but I'm very high on what they've done, not only the skill positions, but I think they have a good idea of who they want to be on both sides of the line of scrimmage as well. So I don't think they're far at all. And I talked about that quarterback position, the guy they brought in this year in 2023. I truly believe he's special, and I think he's different, and I think he's got a chance to take home the hardware of the best player in the country, 2 or 3 years from now. So you put that guy in the middle with everything else they've done. They have to improve defensively, which I think we're going to see that here soon. I don't know, maybe a year or two at most. It's going to come down to consistent quarterback play. You got that last year, and Hendon Hooker, unfortunately, before he went down. And if they have that, then sky's the limit. So I don't think Tennessee's that far off at all.
Cooper, before we let you go, inside our F&M Bank chat, we had a question about a recruit that's supposed to commit tomorrow, and that is Braylon Russell, who is the number 1 running back in the state of Arkansas. It's down to Arkansas, Baylor, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Do you have a feel of the direction he may go, or are Vols fans going to be happy tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, Steve Wilfong is the scoop guy on this, but we did talk a little bit about Braylon Russell on our podcast earlier this week. And, our crystal ball over at 24/7 Sports favors Arkansas. And guys, if you guys are not familiar with what Arkansas is doing this year, I would suggest go take a look. I think Sam Pittman has done a tremendous job in the state of Arkansas. Charleston Collins, Courtney Crutchfield, keeping some of their best talent at home. And, this is a guy that Andrew Ivins, my friend and my colleague, says kind of reminds him of Rocket Sanders a little bit. So I would say, at least from the information in our building, that Arkansas is probably in a good spot right now.
Cooper Petagna, 24/7 Sports. Cooper, thanks so much for the time, man. On the way out, which head coach are you most excited to hear from next week in Nashville, if any?
Yeah, no, that's, Eli Drinkwitz. He's always got something smart to say, right? I think that would be one. Other than that, I think Billy Napier. Billy Napier, recruiting trail, expectations on the field. Gosh, that it just seems to be such a hot and cold relationship with that fan base. I think he's got a lot of expectations to win this year. I love how he's building that roster long term. The quarterback situation to me is a little bit shaky. I'm interested to kind of see where he's at right now.
Cooper, thanks so much for the time, man. We'll see you out here in Nashville next week, and safe travels.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That's Cooper Petagna, 24/7 Sports. C Petagna, Petagna 247 on Twitter. National recruiting analyst at 24/7 Sports, co-host of the 24/7 Sports football recruiting podcast.
I love the moment that he said that everybody at 24/7, from what they're being told, it's gonna be Arkansas tomorrow, and you just saw people in the chat like, "Dang it! Like, come on! Like, this is what we're looking for in every bit." Like, that's what's so funny about it, is how we're living and breathing on this on July 13th of what's going to happen in Arkansas tomorrow because of national recruiting and what's happening.
Look, the 4-star running back, Braylon Russell, you'd love to have him. But all eyes are on Amari Jefferson.
Oh, yeah.
4-star prospect, rated as an athlete on the 24/7 Sports composite, number 3 player in Tennessee, out of Baylor in Chattanooga. And that's one of those receiver battles that you got to win if you want to keep taking those steps to close the gap that Cooper is talking about. Amari Jefferson announcing his commitment between Tennessee, Bama, and Georgia August 5th. What's your answer to that question, though, at the end? Coach, you're most excited to hear from?
I'll tell you when we come back.
How about that?
Look at that.
Blaine and Mickey on 104.5 The Zone. Which head coach are you most excited to hear from at SEC Media Days next week at the Grand Hyatt Monday through Thursday? Here in Nashville, we'll be there live and local, 6 to 6 on 104.5 The Zone. An SEC football extravaganza in Music City. No more Steve Spurrier. Cooper Petagna, we asked him this question, 247 Sports. Some great stuff from Cooper, by the way, inside on some upcoming looming recruiting decisions that you can hear on the podcast. Cooper says Eli Drinkwitz, who definitely always has a quote, but I feel like Eli is at times trying too hard to be that guy. Lucas Panzica, Joe Hunk with you on
He
Blaine
needs to
and
try
Mickey.
harder on winning. That's what he needs to try harder on.
Like, it's this weird thing where Eli Drinkwitz is checking all these boxes. He's doing it at the podium. People are talking about what he says. He's quite honestly doing it in recruiting. He is winning recruiting battles at Missouri that he has no business winning. But he just can't get over that 6-6, 5-7 hump.
No, and it goes. This is where the facility war comes into place because at the moment Missouri doesn't have what the other schools have. I mean, that's why we always talk about Vanderbilt. Like Vanderbilt, if you could, which you are planning to, build the facilities that you need to, you'll be able to recruit better. They go hand in hand, because as much as we focus on Neyland and how much we focus on every football stadium that the teams are playing in, like Nissan, the important part is your practice facility, because that's where the players are going to be like 6 of the 7 days of the week. So that's the important thing. So Missouri needs to catch up in that. And Eli Drinkwitz he's going to give you some one-liners. He's going to be entertaining. He's going to be fun. But, bro, at some point in time, I need you to win. Because if you don't win, I don't care how entertaining you are. Because if you're not winning, then you're not going to be in the conference for long. And I think that's the problem with it. And sadly, like the Billy Napier side, I don't believe in Billy Napier right now at Florida. He hasn't shown me anything that he can develop this. Sam Pittman's fun because he's just an old country boy that I feel like he's going to talk about how he went boar hunting with Traylon Burks at some point in time. Like, I really feel like he'd be that guy. And so I think that the interesting one, look, the most polarizing one is going to be Hugh Freeze, because he's back in the SEC, and you are going to have people that this is the first time that they have truly gotten to talk to him since everything went down and he went full filibuster the last SEC Media Days he was at, where he sat up there and talked about everything from the weather to the brand new pavement that's being paved in Oxford. Like, he tried to fill up as much of that 30 minutes as he absolutely could. And so those are it, because you say Zach Arnett. Okay, he's going to talk about Mike Leach. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be sad. You're going to talk about all the things that you're missing about him. So I'm going to think that Hugh Freeze is going to be the most polarizing, because you want to see what kind of questions the media are going to ask him coming into the league for a second time.
See, with Zach Arnett, though, it's not like, we're going to learn anything. Maybe we will. We usually don't in these things. But Mississippi State is fascinating to me this year. Yes, the tragic situation of Arnett taking over for Mike Leach, he's going to talk about, I'm sure. I don't know if you saw today, too, Joey McGuire, Texas Tech head coach, wearing the pirate blazer. Yes. He had all the pirate symbols on the underside of his blazer. Cool hat tip there to Mike Leach for the current Texas Tech head coach. Mike Leach obviously coached at Texas Tech for so many years. But not only what that is like, the state of that program, in replacing Mike Leach, now having a full offseason, but moving away from the air raid and returning Will Rogers, who comes back as the SEC quarterback with the most under his resume as far as numbers go, production, because of that air raid.
In conference.
Right, in conference. So how does that look with Zach Arnett and a new-look offense with Kevin Barbay, the offensive coordinator, and Will Rogers in there at quarterback? Mississippi State, very intriguing to me in that sense. My answer to this is Kirby Smart, because he's already having to do it. He's putting out statements about all these issues with traffic violations. Another Georgia player arrested for going 88 and a 55 just a few days ago.
He's trying to put out so many fires before he gets to Nashville.
That's what I'm saying. So you're talking about the head coach of the back-to-back defending national champions, who's going to replace his quarterback, Carson Beck, kind of the presumed starter right now. No announcement has been made. I don't know if Kirby's going to do that. That typically doesn't happen. It only happened last year with Clark Lee, who announced Mike Wright as his quarterback, and that was fairly obvious because Mike Wright was with Clark Lee at Media Days.
Absolutely.
Carson Beck's not going to be with Kirby, so I don't expect anything in that regard. But Kirby Smart's going to have to answer to some of this stuff. Like, hey, man, why does this keep happening? Why does this very specific thing keep happening to your program, and nobody else is having this type of issue? So I think that's my answer, is Kirby Smart at Georgia. Well, go ahead.
And like Jimbo Fisher, for instance, and we talked about him a little while ago. I want to know, and he's going to get asked the question, but we want to know the truth. How much is he actually going to stand back and let Bobby Petrino run the offense? Because no matter what you think about Bobby Petrino as a person, between the lines, the man puts players in the NFL because of the schemes that he puts together. It's the same thing with Will Rogers. This man, he has the numbers, but is this more of a Texas Tech thing where it's outside of Patrick Mahomes, every other quarterback has just kind of been blah in the NFL? Or could Will Rogers develop into an NFL quarterback and be able to take the snaps from underneath center, be able to make the quick reads, be able to read the play action, and be able to do the things that he's going to be required to do in the NFL? Those are the questions. But with Jimbo, bro, you have so many opportunities to become one of the top teams in the SEC. Are you just going to sabotage yourself again?
I just like hearing Jimbo talk. I don't know what it is, and I don't care what it's about. I know Jimbo has said some obviously inflammatory things, but it's something about that guy at a podium. That it's the fast pace. It's the frenetic energy that he has seemingly every time he's got a microphone in front of him.
It's nervous energy. The man has so much nervous energy.
Yeah, but there will be a lot of Petagna questions for sure. And he was asked. I mean, he's already been asked some Petagna questions during spring ball, and he even seemed wishy-washy on it then. So that will be interesting. Want to hear from you? 615-737-1045. Which SEC head coach are you most interested in hearing from at Media Days? Gator Mike is in Nashville. Mike, I have my guess of who you're going to say, but why don't you go ahead and give it to us?
Well, Joe kind of covered it about, obviously Billy Napier want to hear about. Now he doesn't have Anthony Richardson. But, Hunk, you got to give him a little bit of leeway, man. He had nothing when he took over for Dan Mullen.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
For him to build it back up, and even this year, he's kind of got the cards stacked against him a little bit with that toughest schedule in the country. So I'm really looking, for that 2024 is when he's really got to show me. You know what I mean?
No, and that's the thing. But the problem with this is, and Mike, the only reason I look at Florida in this way is I believe that because of the state that they're in, because of the program they have, because of they should be, and have they built that facility yet that they were trying to build in Gainesville for the football team that had like the movie theater and stuff?
Yeah, that's already open. Yeah,
okay.
They have in their football complex.
So they have that stuff built. You're in Florida. You're in one of the biggest recruiting grounds when it comes to skill position players. You shouldn't be right now looking at a CBS Sports article about over-under wins and the number 5.5 being beside your name if you're Florida. You just shouldn't. Like that is something that you should have the higher expectations in this. And I know Billy Napier was successful in Lafayette, but it should be going. He shouldn't be number 12 in the country in recruiting. Like in the SEC, that's pretty far down,
Yeah.
And
like I said, and I'm putting that focus on that 2024 class. He's sitting like at the number 3 spot right now. He's done very well, addressing the needs. He's got that quarterback locked up. DJ Lagway will be coming in. So, that's more his style. If Graham Mertz can just be that game manager for us this year and get the ball out to those, I think, our running back room's solid. We got those young receivers in there. Offensive line is in good shape. Defense, I think now that we finally have a good defensive coordinator, the Armstrong guy that came over from Alabama, I think we're going to be in great shape.
Thanks for the call, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, but see, like with Graham Mertz, like I'm looking at him as kind of like a Luke Del Rio type guy, like the game manager thing. Like even Will Greer to an extent.
Remember Austin Appleby?
Austin Appleby, like he was before Felipe Franks. Like Austin Appleby. Like those players, you just want them to kind of do what it was that like Will Rogers you want him to do, because Will Rogers last year, even though he had the yards, a lot of those were yak yards. So he's getting the ball out quickly. He's throwing short to intermediate routes, 5-10-yard passes at the most. And with Graham Mertz, you want him to get that out because he should have more time because the offensive line is going to be better. He should have at least some sort of a running game that should give him the ability to use the play action. But with Mertz, is he going to be able to get the ball and not throw the interceptions and get the defense back on the field? Those are the questions for Florida. But the fact that I'm looking at websites and their projected win total is 5.5 in your Florida, in the state of Florida, and even right now you are still the biggest university in that state. 5.5 is, that hurts. That's a punch in the gut.
They are in a good spot in the 2024 class at the moment, but yes, I do think what they do this season and just keeping their head above the water will go a long way in how that fan base feels about Billy Napier, because I wouldn't say there's high hopes in the short-term future. It'll be really interesting to see what that pressurized situation looks like at the end of the year.
Look, we've talked about this with the Tennessee Titans. They're about to renovate the Swamp. And with renovations come the expectation of season tickets being sold. And if you have to have a coach in there that you believe can be the one that's going to generate the excitement that's going to get Florida fans back into wanting to be in the Swamp for these football games. That's the problem that Miami has had. It is not just the fact that they're a different university. They're a private university. They moved out of the city. They play now at Hard Rock Stadium. They also have just not recruited well because their fan base doesn't put the money into it the way that they should unless you're Dwayne Johnson. So there is a thing in Florida where UCF saying this whole, hey, it's the big four, not the big three. they don't really have anybody to kind of question them on that because they're about to be in the Big 12, and they're always been a good football team in the G5s. Like, they are setting themselves up to be a P5 team, and they're in a city, in a stadium, and they have an enrollment that is the largest in the state and in the country. They are putting themselves there. Florida should be able to do better than what they're doing.
Really quickly, because we're up against it here, what'd you make of Chase Burns, former Tennessee pitcher, announcing his transfer to Wake Forest?
I was so excited to see that he's going to Wake Forest only because it makes sense. This isn't I'm pissed off and I'm going to LSU because I want to play you guys for 3 games in the SEC tournament and I want to shove it up your tail. Like, it's none of that. If you don't know much about Wake Forest, look up the baseball pitching laboratory. Wake Forest has that. They're the only university in the country that has this. They help you develop into a better pitcher. That's where, like, Rhett Lauder, who was drafted high this season, that's what helped him become the pitcher he is. That's why they had 3 or 4 pitchers that were that good. Chase Burns going there, that now sounds like a much better business decision to help him become the starter that he wants to be.
There you go. That'll do it for us. We're headed to Kings Bowl, 3HL, broadcasting live from there in Cool Springs. Split happens, the bowling event tonight. Hope to see all of you out there. I know we'll all be out there, but this has been fun. Joe Hunk, you can hear him with Rhett Bryan tomorrow from 1 to 3. I'll be here in this chair for Buck from 10 to 1. But until then, for Jackson Williams, our producer, for Joe Hunk, I'm Lucas Panzica. You know how this goes, right?
I do. Yeah.
In the meantime,
in between time,
peace.